Welcome to Thailand
ทอมทอมว่าอยู่โคราชใน
I love เมืองไทย I like ฮ่องกง
ได้ยินได้ฟังแล้วอย่าเพิ่งหัวเราะ
I love ฮ่องกง I love เมืองไทย
Welcome, one and all. Greetings and salutations from Al-Quds headquarters in the Gaza Strip. We're back for a new episode, and sorry, did that Al-Quds joke go over everyone's heads?
No, I got it.
Okay, good, just checking. So, we are back for a new episode, and today we're talking about Thailand's rich and storied history of fascism.
Yes.
With our special guest, Frong from Thammasat University Marxism Studies. Frong, welcome to the English version of the show.
สวัสดีครับ and also hello everyone. So welcome to the show. Yeah, here we go.
And of course, Samai is here. And actually, I just quickly want to pause and do a wellness check on him because, Samai, you've been watching a preposterous amount of Scooby-Doo lately, and I just want to make sure you're doing okay.
I think that there's a lot to be learned from watching Scooby-Doo.
What?
If not to understand the economic impact of Depression America, there's something to be learned about, deductive reasoning and that kind of stuff as well. You know? Also, if you two are going to both introduce the episode by saying welcome, can I also say welcome to something?
Go ahead.
Welcome to Thailand. Yes.
Okay. So, shall we get into it? Because today's episode is largely based off of an article that I wrote for www.dindeng.com called Euro-Fascism with Thai Characteristics. It's up on there in Thai and English. And what we're really talking about today is Field Marshal Plek Phibun, who was Thailand's long-serving fascist dictator, and his legacy. So, to give a little background, we need to hop back to Siam pre-1932 to understand the world that Phibun grew up in. So, let's dust off our copies of Jip Humisak's The True Face of Thai Feudalism. And, who wants to start? So, Maya, I'm looking at you.
All right, fine. So in about the 1870s, we get this transition towards I would say a more sort of centralized nation-state approach, and that's when trade between Siam and like foreign powers was becoming a lot more important, and now we're adopting elements of the Westphalian nation-state in order to seem more legitimate when we're doing trade. But
I would also add that the borders were settled around then, right?
Yeah, exactly. Before then, things were still a bit looser. As with the Mandala system, which was sort of the pre-nation state in Southeast Asia, at least. Sort of system of tributaries, not tributaries, that's rivers. You know what I mean? Tribute and that kind of thing. And also, in addition to that sort of regional sort of political organization, inside the various polities you had different feudal sort of societies, right? And according to the law of the passage of the quantity into quality and vice versa, not much really went on materially enough for Thailand to sort of overcome its feudal and agricultural peasant-based economy. So
it didn't industrialize, which is what some might say.
Allow me to say big words first. No,
I'm just doing it for our more simple-minded listeners, of which they
that
all
is
are.
That is so rude. No, it's okay. I understand. Usually, I'm the one that doesn't understand anything. But yeah. So with the feudal system, the Saktina system, you had a hierarchy of people. You had your slaves, and you had your noblemen, your nobility, and that kind of thing. And within that, the economic aspect to that was definitely sort of agriculture and peasantry and maintenance of this backwards. I say backwards in an economic sense, pre-industrial society. And so, however, with the movement towards a nation state or a stronger, more European-style state, well, now you have to introduce European-style economics, which are a lot more based around industry and moving into the secondary sector of the economy, which we now understand is industry. However, the level to which that actually occurred is debatable, hence why the semi-colonial, semi-feudal analysis is placed upon Thailand by the CPT, yes.
So the semi-feudal, semi-colonial thesis was, and correct me if I'm wrong here, was the semi-feudal bit, Samaya's explained pretty clearly. The semi-colonial was that Thailand was still economically dependent in many ways on Western powers, on colonial powers that were the neighboring powers. And those, like the Brits and the French particularly, had business had capital and business inside of Siam, so therefore Thailand or Siam wasn't fully independent of colonial power. So you can't really say that it was a purely non-colonized country, because it was still very much influenced by the colonialism which was happening on the outside. Is that it? You're nodding. Okay, good.
So about the thinking is about race, and race is connect with the state. It's come from Europe. It's when the Rama fight, he go to Europe, right? And he know this concept. This concept is our race is connected to state. Is excuse from French to come to conquest with Thailand. Like they say, it's like, hey, you're not real Thai people. They have the few Lao people and Chinese there, but they're not really Thai. So you're not the real power state. So that's kind of thing that's so the Thai the ruling class that's know that problem. So they would try to make something that's called the Thainess in that time by who is speak the same language and who is live in the territory at that time. Yeah.
So out of this world is born Phibun, and it's a world, like we said, where Siam is moving towards the kind of European nation-state model, but at the same time still has a very, very strong monarchy. So Phibun is born in, just a moment, 1897.
Nice.
He goes to France to study, I think it was like artillery tactics or something like that.
Interestingly enough, Napoleon graduated from one of those places as well.
Well, what do you know?
That's a fun fact, man. That's a fun fact.
And in Europe in the 1920s, while what on earth was going on other than the rise of fascism and the rise of communism, actually, but it was the former that appealed to young and ambitious Phibun. He fell in love with people like Mussolini and Ataturk, who were building their fascistic nation states in the fascistic image. And so Phibun comes back to Thailand in, I forgot what year, I think late 20s, right? Yeah. He came back in the late 20s, and he saw Thailand, which, yes, was moving towards a European model, but very slowly. And that's when the People's Party really gives this movement towards a European-style state, and a shot in the arm with the revolution of 1932. Someone?
I swear, all right, so Ataturk was an authoritarian, sort of like dictator and despot. I don't know if he was a fascist.
Hitler said he learnt more from Ataturk than Mussolini.
Well, in that case, proceed. Sorry, what was the question?
So who wants to talk about the People's Party and the revolution?
I don't.
Oh, so that was me, right? The People's Party.
Yeah.
Is from in France, so that's So you know that Pretty and people know each other in the French, right? So they form the party people. So they plan to revolutionary and to withdraw the monarchy in Thailand. So when they back to Thailand, so the party people and the party people and
People's Party.
The People's Party.
Party
Sorry,
people,
man, but
Yeah.
sometimes nervous, dude. So the People's Party, with the head leader with it, Phibun is the head leader of the People's Party because he really progressive in that time. Yeah.
Well, progressive in in a different kind
Yeah,
of
it's
way
a
than
different
maybe
kind
the
of
word
progressive,
progressive
yeah.
means now. Yeah.
And for sure that he have the army, right? So they have the power to take over the monarchy, and therefore they have the army. So who have the army and they have the power, right? So they get the power to leading the country for the next time. Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's like, I think it's kind of important to remember that within the People's Party there were two factions, right? There was the Pridi Panamyong faction and the Phibun faction, and they were very different, right?
Yeah.
Yes, the military faction led by Black Phibun Songkram was fucking. Well, it was comprised of military officers who basically the only reason that they really joined the Khanar Rasadon was because of due to the depression. What happened was that the state stopped giving money to the to the army, to the military basically, and to the aristocracy, and so they were like, well, I don't like that. I'm gonna do a thing that lets me do whatever I want with the funding for the military. Whereas the civilian faction, which was
Sorry, it's almost like material conditions play the leading factor in making
sorry, are you saying
things happen.
the
Just
world
a
can be
just a
organized
wacky,
in base superstructure?
wacky idea.
What?
Anyway,
Yes, but and then the civilian faction, which was led by Pridi, was sort of more geared about because they went to France and they started learning all these sort of liberal ideas, democratic ideas, and that kind of thing. I mean, but you can't disagree that he wasn't influenced by Soviet ideas, because the nature, the character, and the language used in the constitution that he proposes is basically pretty much influenced by the provisional Soviet constitution. But anyway, that's besides the point. Anyway, Phibun Songkram eventually does the internal coup and then takes control, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. So at this point in time, just remember that there are two factions in the People's Party, and they don't necessarily get along. It is a strategic, tactical alliance at this point in time against a common enemy is a strong word.
Republican alliance.
Yeah,
against
it is a
the
Republican
monarchy.
alliance. It is a Republican alliance. That's right.
So I mean, we don't really need to go into the details of how Phibun got rid of Pridi and how that faction came out on top. I mean, it was kind of bound to happen when you've got one side of the party is a really tough guys with the military behind them.
Well,
The other side is just a bunch of lawyers and thinkers and what have you. So it's no shock that Phibun and the military side came out on top. Although it did take a while for Phibun to actually take full charge of the country. I believe he declared himself dictator in 38, wasn't it? And this when Phibun takes power, this is when Thai fascism really kicks into gear. Because Phibun is your classic fascist. So to just throw some of his policies out there before we get to the big one, which is Thaiification, which we've talked about before, but we will certainly be talking about again. So the name of the country is changed from Siam to Thailand. This is clearly ethno-nationalist intent. I don't think I need to explain that too much. There was a great distancing of the monarchy from the state. So the monarchy went into exile in, I believe, the United Kingdom, and a lot of the princes, there was a huge royal family, a lot of the princes and other members were locked up. And also religious practices were changed and policies. So there was like, I don't really, maybe Frong, you understand this a bit better than me. There was like two different orders of monks or something, and Phibun supported one of them and the other one supported the monarchy, something like that. There's like a supreme patriarch, right? And
yeah, the supreme patriarch. It's like in the Marx system they call it intellectual. So they control the hegemony power of the king, right? So they make the king has the power by the control by the religion. So in Thailand, the people were into the religion, especially in the Buddhist. So that's why they have the called Sankara. So this have to spread the hegemony power of the monarchy. Yeah.
But
Stuff like
Phibun changed the leader of the Sangha, right?
Yep.
Right.
So they use the power of the religion to destroy the power of the monarchy. So when
No, I was just gonna so to synthesizing what you're saying, both of you, is like using this system this structure that was in place before, they managed to sort of reduce the power of the monarchy by replacing the one of the important people within an important institution with someone who represented their own interests, as opposed to who was more like aligned to traditional order and that kind of thing.
Yeah, because you have to remember that in a similar way to in the West,
it was
monarchy
like
got
a putsch.
Their rights.
No, it wasn't. Wait, a putsch is a different thing.
The monarchy got their rights to, exist through the religious institutions. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So some other fascistic policies. So Phibun made his birthday a national holiday.
Nice.
He started getting people to hang portraits of him in their homes, which is kind of ironic if you've ever been to Thailand before. And
in Thailand, I'm not sure people do that anymore. But it's have influence to monarchy that's used that method to
replace the king with me, guys.
Literally, it's a very kind of Oliver Cromwell.
That's kind of work, man. But I'm not really sure that people do that anymore.
Yeah.
About the people.
Oh no chance. But maybe some other national leaders, yes, they certainly do.
Maybe.
So and these militaristic parades.
Power
there would be an
projection
awful lot
and
of
all that
those.
stuff.
There was power projection, exactly. There was also this I can't remember what it was called, this kind of Boy Scout thing that was very similar to the Hitler Youth. Does anyone remember the name of that?
No, sorry.
Let me check the name first. So I'm not sure. It's the same kind of scout of the Rama 6, but I think that's a different kind, man.
I think they changed the name from the Brahma 6
I'm
one.
not sure, man. Oh yeah, I know it. It's like youth. What do you call in English, man?
Oh,
But
like
it's trained by military.
cadet.
It's a people in cadet, right?
Yeah.
So we would call that.
Hitler Youth, Phibun cadet, whatever.
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, whatever you want.
And also, seizing media under state control, which is pretty significant. In terms of like his actual economic policies, I gather there was a big move for industrialization, right?
I was sitting down with some academics because I'm intelligent, and they were talking about their the other people in their faculties, and one guy basically had told one of the academics I was with, and he had said, "Oh yeah, I admire Phibun's economic policies. He's as an economic nationalist," and the academic I'm talking to sort of goes, "Well, that's sort of like congruent with fascism, like." Is it not? Not in the sense that like, it's not that it's like more economically controlled and therefore like nationalization. When you say economic nationalist, you don't mean like you nationalize things.
No, I'm not a great researcher of fascist economic concepts. However,
corporatism is the main one. That's the main.
Right,
that's
exactly. So it's kind of like the state has a lot of influence over capital and can almost instruct or very strongly encourage capital to move in certain mechanisms in the economy, right? So, for example, like we want to build a shitload of tanks, or we want to build a air force or something like that, because fascists love the army. So they will use the public economy. They will use the independent economy to do that, but through a lot of maybe coercion, maybe a lot of encouragement, or however they will use the authority of the state.
So if you want to use like some language here, right? The goal of like a socialist or a communist society is to remove the concept of class, right, completely, because opposing classes cannot reconcile their differing interests. In corporatism, the thesis put forward is that you can have people work together in a very specific way, which is a bit bollocks. However, that...
Wait, hold on, explain that.
Class collaborationism is one of the cornerstones of corporatism, and it is enforced by the state in that you are like allocated jobs basically. And with economic nationalism is like that very direct wartime economy type situation where it is the state dictating, you know, things. However, it's still working with free market and market sort of system. So it's not anti-capitalistic. Yes.
How does that differ from state capitalism? From, do you know?
I have no idea.
Your Thammasat University Marxism studies, bro.
I'm not sure.
Let's not include that. Let's not include that term because we don't know who's gonna fucking. Actually,
People jump in our mentions for that one.
yeah, yeah.
So essentially, yeah.
Hang on. Okay, I think it's about context, right? Because economic nationalism is like within the context of like a right-wing nationalistic sort of interpretation of politics and economics, whereas state capitalism I'm not gonna demonstrate any allegiances here, but state capitalism, whether you agree with it as an analysis or disagree with it, it is still within the context of moving towards like the abolition of class and markets and capitalism, that kind of thing. So it's I would say contextually that is one of the differences, but I don't know enough.
Well, I would imagine as well we're getting a bit too interfering.
We really are.
I imagine
we're going so far away.
I imagine that the difference is that each different one recognizes a different conception of what labor is. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Because under state capitalism, you'll have a concept, assumingly, you'll have a Marxist concept of what labor is, whereas under economic nationalism, as you said it, you would have
just a conservative free market
exactly
type thing.
Very hierarchical is a good thing kind
basically
of conception. I see. So as far as we're aware, because we are not the best of scholars, this was kind of Phibun's policy, right? Frong, does that sound about right?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Can I add one more thing?
Sorry,
if we're
I'm
doing
a bad QC, man.
Can I add one more?
Go ahead.
Add one more? Okay, so it's been alluded to, but basically, yes, people changed the name of the country, right? And part of that was basically his Goebbels, which who was, if I can pronounce his name correctly, Wichit Watakan Luang Wichit Watak. Is that correct? I can't pronounce his name.
Yeah. Go on, man.
Excellent. Anyway, so he basically constructed like the national education system and various things, and he sort of created not the academic but the cultural background or the cultural basis of what would then go on to be part of Phibun's Thaification program. So like all that stuff sort of comes from this general body of work that is sort of worked upon by these sort of academic, sort of aristocratic people who were present all throughout the beginning of the 20th century. Yes, that's what I wanted to say.
So we got to move on to the big old elephant in the room, the big old white elephant in the room, which is Thaification. And I just want to throw in a little bit more background here, which we kind of missed in our description of pre-revolution Thailand, which is that it was an incredibly diverse place in terms of localized languages, localized cultures, localized religious practices, and localized governing institutions. And this is obviously a problem if you're one of these European style leaders who wants to create a fascist state, because the thing about the fascist state is that it's very homogenous, and when you've got this huge amount of diversity across the country, you're going to run in, you've got a problem on your hands. So I think that's really important to point out.
Are you calling Sweden a fascist state? little bit. Anyway, Samaya, I was just going to say that and it's important to remember that again, this is all because of how again the real face of Thai feudalism, and that even though we've reached this point where we've started to establish a sort of a fascistic, a Euro-fascist nation-state type situation thing, and the nation-state thing has been going on for like 60-something years at this point, there has still not been enough like development economically and definitely culturally. So there is still this level of low level of integration and connection. So yeah.
I will call you out a little bit
Oh.
when you said cultural development.
Oh,
Like
cultural develop. Sorry, I meant political development, like
Okay.
progressive politics. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Whoops.
Yeah. your Western centrism is showing, bro.
Sorry.
From do you wanna give us a little introduction to Thaification?
Thaification
My favorite Red Hot Chili
is the
Peppers song.
best. Yeah, you know what? Something that my people in this country see is Thai. Is come from the root of Thaification. If look back in the book, in the study book, when I was the student, that's everything is about the Thai culture. It's have people names. It's like every Thai dance, every Thai food. When I was a young, I always ask why this guy is doing such a various thing. Especially the food, pad Thai, yeah, all those things. Because if we look back in the People Party, yeah, it's have two variation, right? It's have PD and People, and so they too want to make the country better in their own view, right? So Phibun is want to make the country to superior. They want to improve the nutrition to Thai people. The Thai people is eat like a vegetable or the low energy stuff. So the Phibun Party's status is there's make the culture that Thai people have to eat the foods that have the best nutrition to make the Thai people stronger. That will make the great army and will improve the nation. So that's really a ridiculous idea, right? So did you have anything to?
Yeah, I mean, it was not just talking about like personal physical changes. Like he also mandated the amount of sleep that people were supposed to have, right?
Oh yeah. That's totally.
Sounds like a communist nightmare.
It's like communist nightmare.
And I'm just trying to think of any more. I mean, there was also, like a lot of cultural stuff. So and linguistic actually. Maybe we can start with that.
Yeah,
so previously, I'm not 100% sure about this, but am I right in saying that previously local schools would teach in the local language? Is that right?
Do you mean in that time, right?
Yeah. So like a school in Chiang Mai would teach in Kamuang or something like that before 32.
Oh yeah, I think yes.
Right.
According to the education plan of King Rama V, they want to the local have their power.
Okay.
So I think yes.
So sorry, just to be clear, that's the Chulalongkorn education plan, which was this is well before Phibun's time. So assumingly after that, schools were teaching in their local language, and that was a big no-no for Phibun. So not only do you have schools changing the language, but you also have like local governments will be working in a standardized, nationalized, central Thai language, and all of the also like religious institutions as well would be another one that would be speaking in standard Thai language, and so. I think another thing we got to remember is that these kind of standardizations very much were drawn from the Bangkok military culture, right? So this is not regular Thailand, because in a sense there was no regular Thailand. There was a large assortment of different cultures, languages, etc. And to create this conception of Thainess, Phibun and the People's Party drew from what they knew, which was Bangkok military culture. Is that right?
Yeah, it sort of makes sense if you think about, like, I guess psychologically, right? Because what he's doing to the country is what the army would have done to him. Sleep, is being mandated at certain times, of things you can wear, things how you address people, what you say to people. What I just said the same thing twice. So sort of this internalized hierarchy or whatever it is,
militaristic.
You understand what I'm saying.
Militaristic.
And it's just been projected outwards onto the Thai state.
So
do you want to go any further?
Yeah.
Do you want to go any further with the mandates? Because I got like the important ones just sort of pulled.
Yeah,
up.
Go ahead. You throw some of the ones out that I haven't done yet.
I think that it's important to remember. Okay, big word moment. Palingenetic ultranationalism. Which is the idea that you're recreating the national history or the national narrative of a fascistic state to fit the interests of the regime, right?
So it's historical revisionism.
Yes. In a bad way, in a very bad way. And so what happens is that you develop this new culture in order to say the culture was already there from the beginning. And it's like, well, the last 4 years did happen. They didn't just not happen because you say they didn't, but you control the narrative and you control the language. So if you look at
it's like that classic conservative thing of inventing a past and saying, oh, we're going to reclaim that past, that glorious history.
Precisely. It's make America great again.
Yeah,
that's what it is. And so, sort of to backtrack, a couple mandates I think are important are mandate 1, 3, 9, and 10. They all sort of have a relationship with culture. I won't go through them because that's too much, but just understand that basically they say that you have to refer to all people in Thailand as Thai. There is no division by region anymore. Some may say, oh, that's good, we're all united. Well, it strips away identity, and it strips away local autonomy, and it strips away any form of
well, it strips away community, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, it strips away any independence you had from the state, right? Because now you associate...
Well, from the highly centralized...
from the highly centralized state. And then you have to speak in Thai, and then people who don't know Thai, oh, you should teach them Thai. Oh, and people will say, oh, well, that's good. Now we can teach other people Thai, and we're being encouraged to help educate people. Well, what kind of purpose? What are you doing it for? Are you doing it for the sake of education? I don't think so.
But also, on the back of this, it's not just, oh, we will teach you Thai and then you can go about your business otherwise. No, you're basically not allowed to be Muslim anymore, for example.
This is also true.
Like, they closed religious schools.
Yeah.
Muslim religious schools. They stopped people from teaching in the...
Clothing is important, because then now you can't do whatever you was doing. If it's religious, religious related thing, you have to wear the whole... Why do you want me to wear a pantsuit or something that's related to the European pantsuit? I'm not going to do that. It's too hot.
What were you going to say?
No, I just said about this coding. Religion school is in Deep South, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, this obviously created a lot of victims in a sense that we're talking about, like I said, the Muslims and also Lao people. I would imagine in Isan.
Yeah, sure. But it's what I said. Adding a little bit is some Isan people in the local dialogue. They say which their own race is they're Laos. They're not Thai. They say Isan people is Lao people. That's brilliant. It says something about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now that you have to refer to people in Isan as like just Thai, well now like that identity is sort of the identity is no longer recognized. The nation statewide. It's recognized locally in the community, of course, but officially it's been removed. And when things get officially removed, well, what does that say about the type of state that is in place?
I mean, also to do a kind of lame crit, which is like, it's just, can you imagine this society where, it's just so bland, just before, things would be so much more interesting, so much more diverse, so much more fecund of culture and experience, and just, you want to create this bland, monotonous,
it sounds like a communistic hellscape.
Sounds like some kind of communist hellscape.
Communist is the bad thing, man.
So yeah, that was Thaiification, and that didn't stop throughout the Phibun era, and we can kind of go on to the legacy of that. But I very much also wanted to talk about the war with France. So this is where geopolitics gets really complicated.
I would hardly call it a war with France.
Well, there was some battles.
Yeah, it's not very
I mean,
important.
and it wasn't really with France.
So in 1940, fascists being fascists, what do they love doing? They love expansionist wars, right?
Well, if you think about it, it was more of a reclamation.
Well, that's what they'll say, right? Sounds. If anybody's a student of European history in the 20th century, that should sound familiar. So,
Lebensraum?
historically, we alluded to it earlier. Thailand had arranged its borders under the previous feudal regime, and in the Thai conception, they had ceded Thai lands to French Indochina. So during World War II, which is happening in Europe, France has just been occupied by Nazi Germany, and it's now Vichy France, and its colonies are in a state of disarray. So Phibun sees this as a great opportunity to reclaim this Thai land, and he declares war to take the territories. And actually, initially, because of how fucked, basically, the French forces were, the Thai army made really large gains against a very weakened French colonial force. There's kind of this joke among Thai people that, like, oh, the Thai army was shit, they got fucked over by the French. They actually did quite well, at first anyway. So they push forward, they win a few battles, but then Japan steps in. Of course, Japan has been expanding all across Asia. They're entering Southeast Asia. They've basically, since France has been occupied by the Nazis basically have run of France's territories, and so I'm not exactly sure how the geopolitics kind of works out here, but Japan sweep through French Indochina and come right up against Thailand, and at this point Phibun is in the middle of the war with colonial France. So Japan ends the fighting and says, hey Thailand, you can have the land, right? Did I miss anything there? It's a really weird story.
That's the basics, and that's all I know too.
Okay,
yeah.
Good.
That's all that matters, really.
So, Phibun, victorious, returns to Bangkok. Apparently it was an incredibly popular war in Bangkok, and he builds the Victory Monument in central Bangkok that I'm sure a lot of people know about. And then Japan immediately occupies Thailand. So, why did Phibun fold to the Japanese?
I have to say that because they make ally with Germany, right? So that makes sense to go with the fall with the Japanese, and Japanese is very higher imperialist, and they have a lot of armies. So the first time and Thai go with war with Japan, right? At first, but they knew that they can defeat them. So.
Right, so is it just like fascist game, recognize imperialist game, like, hey, look, we recognize hierarchies, we recognize you're the more powerful one here. Like,
yeah, so there's something like that.
Oh, yeah, two things. He invited, I think it was both Germany and Japan. I don't think he invited Italy to the opening of the Victory Monument. And also, the Cassius Belli for the war, right? The reclaiming land. Yeah. That again feeds back in
for the war.
Yes, sorry. That again feeds back in.
We're not all Latin posh boys like yourself.
Listen, man, I have not taken a day of Latin. Thank you very much. I have a book, How to Swear in Latin, and that's about it. All right.
How vulgar. Anyway, so the reason for invading.
Yeah. So that relates to the concept of palingenetic ultranationalism again, because it's like, hey, this is part of our heritage. This is part of our national history. So you continue expanding this national mythos to include historical truths. However, you manipulate them in a way that again helps the agenda of the regime.
So during World War II is a complicated era. I think the important thing to mention is
No, it's pretty straightforward. Everyone bad, America good.
everyone bad, America good. I think it's important to mention the role of Priddy. So Priddy kind of makes a little kind of comeback. He was in Washington the whole time. Is that right?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
important.
Not
And
cool,
he
but like
was,
interesting.
He was what's the word? Orchestrating the Seri Thai resistance against the Japanese, which was the Free Thai
Yeah. Good
movement.
stuff.
So at that point, Priddy was very much an ally of the West and the Soviet Union against Japanese imperialism, and the late war period is very, very complicated. But pretty much what happens, as far as I'm aware, is Phibun sees that the Japanese are, the People's Party see that the Japanese are going to lose, and they quietly do some deals with the Americans. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, that's
If Wikipedia
right.
says it's
And
right.
I think American will fall from that because East Thai is very great for geopolitics to against communists in the future.
Yeah.
So that we go with Thailand. So yeah, that makes sense.
And then, just in reference to that, once I think Phibun does he get cooed or does he just leave? Because he sees what's coming.
No,
Dabney.
I think it's not stepped down.
No.
No, I think he was cooed.
Cooed.
So, yeah.
By, what's
So-
his name?
I forget, man. We're about to enter a phase where there's like a prime.
Sarit, right?
Was it Sarit?
Is that?
No, Sarit
On
did
the-
the later coup.
That was the one
Oh,
afterwards.
it's that the data group. Yeah,
We're
yeah.
entering a phase where there's like a new prime minister every 6 months, so it's getting really
It's pretty
complicated.
bad.
So that's also Thai.
So I think, so Phibun gets couped towards the end of the war, and by those military officers that I mentioned before who were loyal to the Americans and the Soviets, just for tactical reasons, I think, more than anything ideological. And for this reason, Thailand was not considered to be an Axis ally by the West after the war. And it's because, like Frong was saying, the West saw Thailand as a very useful ally against a rising communist sentiment in Southeast Asia. And I believe that the reclaimed land, was given back to the French as well. So, whap whap, Phibun is out of the picture for now.
They had the part 2.
Samaya, did you have anything to add?
But yeah, no, to sort of, I guess, put it all together in a nice theory parcel, if you could say something like that. I would say that sort of the foreign policy, the domestic policy, economic policy, sort of all these things,
Social policy,
they all sort of revolved around sort of the same main notions of sort of strength, unity, but not solidarity. If you see what I mean by the difference, and also posturing. A lot of it was posturing. It's like, oh, look at us, we can do it too. Hitler, Mussolini, we are also cool. However, I don't know how much of a friend of Mussolini you want to be, especially in the late war period. But yeah. You have all of these things which sort of reflect that fascistic, ethno-nationalistic, palingenetically ultranationalistic tendencies and character of the Phibun administration, which you have to remember, this is very recent after the 1932 coup. We'll call it a coup. 1932 coup, or the Siamese Revolution, if you will, bourgeois revolution. But the point I'm trying to make is that this is I would say, like, one of the most landmark parts of forming the basis of Thai politics.
or the conceptualization of what Thai even is.
Exactly, that's also a true point. This created the foundations for what Thai politics was like in the 20th century, and even to this day, the role of the military and that kind of thing. But that's going a bit too far.
So can I?
Yeah.
So can I ask from, like, what is the general perception of this era, of its politics among Thai people today? Like how are you taught about this era? How are you led to understand it as a regular person or whatever?
So we have thought that he will be a great man here influencing Dan Smithing. He's like is good guy in the book, right? Sometimes is I don't know this have the monarchy or the Thai conservative and okay with the legacy of the Phibun. So that in the paper and the picture, this people is really good guy for Thai. It's developed Thai to base to something like that. But in the book, it's not talk about how people relate with the loyal family a lot. So we just know that his stuff that he do. So that we thought about it. People.
One concept that I kind of often got from talking to Thai people about Phibun is that, and we will talk about his relationship with the monarchy later and how the monarchy came back into play, because the monarchy were in exile for this whole period that we're talking about pretty much. But generally, even by today's royalists, I get the impression he's seen as like a guy who, maybe he wasn't perfect, but you know what? He pushed the country forward. He was a progressive in that, he turned Thailand into like a modern state. And that's kind of how he's conceived of today. Would that be right, From?
Yeah. That's exactly.
Okay.
You're very nice, perfect.
That interestingly enough is related to just the characteristic of fascism in general. It's always been modernism for some reason has always been like this this part of the fascistic ideology, which is just that we have to create a society of the future or a better but better and society.
It's like a synthesis of what we were saying, which is like looking back to a past time when everything was perfect and whatever,
which is weird, and then
at the
wanting
same
to go
time,
forwards to a time which is reminiscent of the past, which is backwards.
It's like it is a synthesis of like these two concepts, which is quite strange. But I have to say, I can see how that can be alluring.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be honest.
Absolutely.
If you believe that fucking revisionist bullshit history.
I was just gonna add, from Frank was talking about like the books and how they talk about people and his relationship, or they don't talk about the relationship to the monarchy, right? The fact that they don't talk about that relationship sort of helps you fill those gaps in your head by yourself.
They let you assume
you assume that stuff by yourself, instead of being fed false lies.
Just exactly times work, man.
So I think I really don't have the headspace to, I've only been up for the past 8 hours. I don't have the headspace. I need to be up for like 3 days straight to understand the next 10 years of Thai politics in this story. It's unbelievably complicated and painful to wrap your head around all the goings on. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to kind of skip it. I'm going to try and sum it up in about 3 or 4 sentences, right? So here we go. The monarchy comes back, gradually pushes people out. The reason the monarchy comes back and is able to do this, in part, they get a lot of help from the USA because Thailand is now this buffer state against the rise of communism in Asia. So there's another awkward period where Phibun and King Bhumibol are coexisting, and there's this kind of tug of war, right? And then I think Frong's counting my sentences and giving me the numbers.
It's a run-on sentence.
God damn it.
No, it's just the Rama.
Oh, okay, Rama 9, right.
Okay,
exactly.
Something.
And so there's this kind of tug of war between Bhumibol and Phibun. Eventually, there's a very funny story that I just want to mention about an attempted coup while Phibun is in his second era of being prime minister, and there's an attempted coup while he's on a boat, and he gets kidnapped and held hostage on a boat, and then he jumped out of the boat and swam back to land, right? Have you heard this story?
I've not heard this story.
Yeah, it's... You know what? People have the name too. Thai people is... I don't know how you call it in English, but I just call him... He is a Thai refer him to the tough guy, because he has a lot of assassination attempt and kidnap, so must be really tough. So we call that tough guy, right?
So like in this era, right, there were all these assassination attempts and it was very hectic. Anyway, in the end, Bhumipol very much comes out on top. And what's interesting to me is that a lot of the strategies that were adopted, the fascistic strategies that were adopted by Phibun and the People's Party, were continued by Bhumipol. You see very little change in actual policy, while they just kind of switch out the face.
What are you
Of the
insinuating?
leadership. Huh?
What are you insinuating?
Oh, I'm not insinuating anything. I have obviously a great deal of respect for King Bhumipol.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you
His
have a great deal of
Majesty.
respect for people. And I was like, yeah, okay, me too.
So, I mean, if we're gonna so now, I'm really sorry we had to run through it that fast, but it is ridiculously complicated. I detailed it a bit more in the article. You can read it there. But if we quit? What I want to do is I want to revisit some of the policies of Phibun's that we mentioned and see if they continued under Bhumipol. Right? So I'm just going to read this off as a checklist, and I want you guys to say, like, yes, it was continued, or no.
What if I don't know?
So, then you can say that.
Oh,
So
I don't know.
did they religious practices? So changing the leadership of the Sangha to one that supported the current head of state.
Yes.
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 So Bhumipol, got a new Grand Patriarch monk in. Made his birthday a national holiday.
Oh, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah, totally, man. That's totally, man.
People hanging portraits of him in his home.
Yes.
Oh, they have the song about that too. So I see why not.
Militaristic
Okay, sorry.
parades.
Oh, yeah.
It's a different tribe, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think yes.
Similar thing to the Hitler Youth. I don't remember the name. That's what I've got it noted down as here.
Are we referring to
So
like,
Asa Samak, right?
Rodor, Boy Scouts. Yeah, exactly. Cadets. Yeah. Thaiification policies, so spreading the Thai identity, language, and culture to all the other areas of the country.
Well, yeah, that's been a central part of the Thai state for a while.
Can I just get a big yes?
Yes.
What else we got here? Seizing media and putting it under state control.
Oh, totally, man. Totally.
Damn. That's insane.
And we've got finally economic policy, so that would be the government encouraging and directing private capital.
I mean, I guess if you count like the royal projects.
No, it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a-
so.
And also the fact
I think
that
that's a
SBC, not SBC, SCB is owned by the
It's
king.
you need to read Royal Capitalism.
I'm gonna get onto that.
to really understand that the answer is a strong yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna say
so,
yes.
Literally every policy of Phibun's that we talked about before literally everyone were carried out under Bhumipol. So I'm gonna leave that to the listenership to decide, what kind of leader that makes Bhumipol. Although, let's remember that technically Bhumipol was not the prime minister or anything like that. At first, it was Sarit who was the first loyal prime minister under Bhumipol. And so it was, I'm not saying Bhumipol actually created any of these policies, but those all happened to be policies while he was head of state after they got rid of the remnants of the People's Party. So
yeah, it's about the media. It's very interesting, and you know what? In every show, every movie that have to refer to the king, it's very funny. It's have the one show that's about it's a foreign who lives in Thailand. So how they live, how they like, and the ends up of the TV and that show that's always interview that foreign guy, and the foreign guy always say, "Oh, ผมรักประเทศไทยประเทศไทยมีประชาชนทั่ว." That's really ridiculous. But you know what? But that kind of shit is work. So I see that. Thai is happy with get king.
Nothing is more sus than that.
That's enjoy Thailand. Yeah, that's just one example of the show. So there's have many Thai of show that do that. But it's not overall control, but it's soft control. Like it's soft power.
I would give one example of overall control of the media, though, which was when King Bhumibol died, there was certainly overall control of the media, if you remember that. You know, all the stations were playing the documentaries of his life and the monks and the funerals, and all the radio stations as well, especially the day after he died. It was just chanting and news about the royal household. So they definitely have taken complete control.
I see nothing wrong with that. He was the king after all.
Too, man. We all turned back, man. Back then.
So,
Yeah.
so what I kind of wanted to wrap up on was the real legacy of Thai fascism here, because I don't even want to say Thai fascism is gone. It is very much alive, like we just said. The continuation of it from Bhumibol to Vajiralongkorn, the current king, there's been no break, really. So there's also this awkward trend, which I mentioned in the article, among the young protesters who very much admire Phibun. And
Yeah.
do you wanna talk about that, From?
The movement in Thailand we see before in the last year that have really praised the Phibun legacy. So they tell that they just want the republic, like your article say. They just need to reform the monarchy. So the symbol of this thing that destroyed the monarchy is that Phibun, right? So that the hashtag on Twitter that say in Thai is "Ku Lan Jom Pon Po." Sing that. So what in English version say?
It's like we are the children of Phibun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that is exactly is it. So I see it's kind of weird. So the legacy that the monarchy is get from Phibun is why then the Thainess and how they control us. So that's something that people their influence from Phibun and people influencing from the fascist stuff. And I'm not sure they have to say that influence is like when you plant the fascist seeds and they're growing. So it's not like influencing. Right?
It's just a continuation of something that was already
It's
planted.
just
I think that is important to like, because it's so much more insidious in Thailand, in my opinion, because of how all these notions are associated with the fascism and the authoritarianism, the conservatism. They all sort of manifest in these happy ways. You know, it's like, Children's Day, go on the fucking tanks and stuff. And like now, I mean, you're teaching kids to be fine around these things that kill people, you know. And that
just if people aren't aware, there is a lot of militarizing of children in Thai society.
We
I
are a Spartan society. We are a stratocracy.
Go on, Frong, sorry.
Yeah.
No, I have to say it's my own experience. When I was when I was high school, when I was kids, all Thai kids, especially the men there, have encouraged to go to cadet a lot. Like they have the purpose in your life. You have to go to cadet. I am one of them too. So my parents told me always, they say like you have to keep your legacy, and if you go to cadet, you don't have to competition in the university. Then you get work and you get job and use. It's like you make your family and country proud of you.
Pride, honor, that kind of stuff.
Honor
your family.
It's really honor for your enemy and your country. So everyone fall with that. And in Thailand, in the face of you being Thai kid, you have to attempt to go to cadet first. Then that is one phase of Thai men kid.
Okay, should we wrap it up then? We've been going for over an hour.
Yeah, it's just been good. I've enjoyed this because
it's been a good
It's one
one
of the few things I actually know things about and can say stuff about, you know?
I just want to say that in the Thai movement now, that we see in the last year, we focus on how to destroy the system, right? The system that put us down. But in the same time that we praise the dictatorship, that the old dictatorship rule that make this hierarchy happen, like Phibun. Yeah. So they have to look forward, not to look backward. Yeah, I have to say.
Which is ironically exactly what fascism does and what Phibun did. Right? All right, guys. I think nice ep. Let's say bye to our lovely listeners.
Goodbye now.
Who I'm sorry if I insulted you earlier, listeners, but I can't help myself. So thank you so much, Frong, for joining us. And do you want to plug your 2 organizations? One of which is very cool.
So if you're interested in the Marxist stuff in Thailand, or you want to join us in the online classroom in the Marxist, especially if you're Thai, so you can search in the Facebook like TUMH Somerset University Marxist Study. So thank you, Gabriel and Smile, to make this happen. So I will enjoy some English word I'm not good, not correct, and some information I'm not sure. So it's the first time for me it's English in the publication. No.
Well, you know what?
So,
if anybody doesn't understand your accent or something, fuck them. They're racist. So fuck them. All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks
so
for listening,
listeners.
everyone. See you next time.
Bye.
La 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 la.